Some new questions for the president to answer today. MSNBC has a new report related to President Trump's business dealings with foreign governments. You may recall, just days before taking office, the president did promise to donate all profits he earned from foreign governments back to the United States Treasury. That way he would avoid potential conflicts. But MSNBC has learned that the Trump Organization is not, in fact, tracking all possible payments. MSNBC chief legal correspondent Ari Melber has original reporting and joins me with more. Ari, you've been tracking this. You've been trying to dig in. They're not keeping track of who's paying what at the hotels?
They said they were going to track the money and donate it back to the Treasury. That's important because foreign governments can spend money in all sorts of ways to influence the president. It's also important because the Constitution says you can't take foreign gifts if you're president.
Why?
Why? Because it could obviously influence you, and that could be a big problem.
Yep.
So that's what's called the Emoluments Clause. There's an open federal case on this, by the way, in federal court in New York. So what we did over the past several weeks, myself, Meredith Mandel, and Diana Marinaccio, in my legal unit here at MSNBC, was dig into this. How would this work and what's going on? We found a lot. The big headline here we can put up on the screen is we have obtained the internal Trump policy for how they're doing this. Put up on the screen here, this is a pamphlet. It's about 8 pages, and you see it there, foreign government patronage. And they say, reading from the Trump Organization, it's not the intention or design of their policy for our properties to attempt to identify individual travelers who have not specifically identified themselves as being a representative of a foreign government entity.
They're putting the onus on the foreigners to identify themselves, not on themselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
That is, in spirit and I think in letter, a real departure or violation of the pledge Donald Trump made in January after he was elected, saying we're going to track all this and give the money back. They're now saying basically we're just going to trust the foreign government officials who potentially could be trying to influence or bribe the U.S. government to self-report themselves. I want to give you one more reaction. It's a long report we did, and I'm giving you the highlights. Noah Bookbinder, executive director of Crew, which is suing them, and I know you're going to speak to another one of the lawyers about this in a moment, gave us this response, quote, "You don't get to violate the Constitution and say that you're only going to address some instances and not others because it's inconvenient."
Playing devil's advocate here, can the Trump administration or Trump Organization argue, hey, listen, if we don't know they're a foreign national, they can't influence us?
They could argue that if you think the tracking system is the end of the story. The question, and this will ultimately be resolved by the courts because we don't have a ruling on this because no president's ever tried to run this larger business, is whether the money itself, known or unknown, constitutes an illegal gift. If it does, they're going to be ordered to track and give over all of this. The last point I'll make is the Trump Organization has taken the legal position that they were doing this voluntarily, but they don't think it's a gift, that no court has ever said it is a gift in this capacity, which is true.
They say that hotel rooms don't really amount to that.
And so that's their view, and we report in this story that they continue to maintain that. What's new here and what's different, and what is important potentially legally, is that they went from saying we're going to track it and fork it over to we're kind of going to track it, but not really even ask about it.
And this applies not just to the D.C. hotel, but all of Trump's properties, his very many properties.
His very many properties. We also spoke to Congressman Cummings, who helped obtain some of this information. His response was, well, if they're not going to track it, think about what else is going on.
Yeah.
A group like RT that represents Putin could secretly funnel money, and the public would never know about it. I don't think this is the end of this story. I think it's the beginning.